PC 时代的英特尔，到移动时代的苹果，再到人工智能时代的英伟达，3家世界500强顶级科技公司，3次担任全球副总裁。他是公司架构的顶层设计师，他是企业投资与竞争策略的战略专家。由他直接参与负责的投资项目，金额超过100亿美元。让人感叹，有一种成功叫做歌俊式成功。加入天九，他提出大共享理论，书写大共享时代，运筹帷幄，布局四海。他担任全球共享经济联盟秘书长。是时势造英雄，还是英雄造时势？如今疫情突袭，寒冬延期，他秉承赋能商界、共享幸福的理念，和企业家伙伴一起审时度势，化危为机，共同探索转型升级的智慧企业之路。古有青梅煮酒论英雄时势，而今线上夜话谈智慧企业。
各位歌俊夜话的老朋友、新朋友，大家晚上好，欢迎收看由天九重磅打造的云洽会直播系列节目《歌俊夜话：全球视野之海外商机》。近年来，我们在国家“一带一路”倡议实施的背景之下，越来越多的中国企业通过走出去、引进来，参与到国际的合作，开创企业发展的新格局。在《歌俊夜话：全球视野之海外商机》的系列节目当中，我们以多样化的形式和多元的视角，带领企业家朋友感知世界文化，探索海外商机。有这样的一个国家，是由17000多个岛屿组成，被誉为千岛之国。这里植被丰富，四季常青，人们称之为它是赤道上的翡翠，它就是印度尼西亚。作为东南亚最大的国家，印度尼西亚横跨到南北半球，横卧于亚洲、大洋洲2大洲、太平洋和印度洋2大洋之间，在国际舞台上扮演着越来越重要的角色。今年是中国和印度尼西亚建交70周年。建交70年来，两国在各个领域的合作不断的加强，双边关系取得了长足的发展。今天就让我们在歌总和印度尼西亚驻华大使周浩黎先生、印度尼西亚前外交部副部长迪诺·帕迪·贾拉尔先生的讨论当中，走进印度尼西亚，了解双边经贸合作的丰硕程度。
Ambassador Otmangam and Mr. Yalao, it is a great honor to meet you virtually online. Thank you so much for spending time to share with our audience over 700,000 Chinese entrepreneurs on TOJOY's cloud platform on a variety of topics. Your wonderful country, the bilateral relationship between the two great Asian countries, the challenges and the opportunities in the current environment, and of course, the government policies for attracting foreign investment to Indonesia and the status quo of Indonesia businesses in China. And of course, the tips you can offer to the Chinese business folks who are ready to do business with Indonesia. I'm sure your sharing will be of utmost value to the audience. TOJOY is probably the largest business accelerator in China, with its business presence in 5 continents and over 5,000 employees. So we promote sharing economy and strive to bridge innovation, bridge projects, and with entrepreneurs' resources to scale businesses. So without further ado, allow me to get to the questions. So let's see, first of all, a bit of Indonesia. I understand the name of Indonesia stands for island country in Greek, with tens of thousands of islands and a wonderful climate. Indonesia really lives up to its reputation as the emirate of the Equator. To the Chinese people, Indonesia is the largest and the most populous country in Southeast Asia, a country with many ethnic groups and diverse cultures. But I'm sure there are much more. So would you give us a little brief about your country and share with us some interesting highlights in your history and culture.
Well, thank you very much. Indonesia is, first of all, Chairman Gajun, thank you so much for your friendship and for your goodwill and for hosting this event. And I hope this event will be useful to all the entrepreneurs in China who are joining the TOJOY platform. And also thank you to Ambassador Johari Oratmangun for joining this program, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot from you. But you know, Indonesia is a very unique country. It has thousands years old of history, but it is a relatively new modern republic. You know, the term Indonesia itself only came about in the early 20th century. You know, unlike China, the term China has been around for thousands of years, for many years, but Indonesia as a political term is very new. And Indonesian nationalism also grew in the 20th century, and then we became independent in 1945. We are the fourth largest country in the world after China, India, and the United States. So a lot of people, a huge market, and a growing economy. You know, at one point, Indonesia was the second or third largest, highest growing economy among the G20 economies. Yeah. Indonesia is also very multi-ethnic. There's a lot of ethnic groups in Indonesia, like in China, and multi-religious countries. We are the country with the largest Muslim population in the world. But in Indonesia, the Muslims, the Christians, the Hindus, the Buddhists, and also Confucianism, they all live together happily. And by the way, in Indonesia, our motto is out of many, one. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika means yes, many cultures united in diversity. That's the one. Yes. Indonesia is also the largest country in Southeast Asia and the largest member of ASEAN, and the largest economy also in the Southeast Asian region. Indonesians, they have great food, Chairman. You would love our food. It's just so diverse, like our people. I'm from an ethnic group called Minang, and from my ethnic group, it's run by women, right? It's very matriarchal. It's one of the very few societies where women are the leaders traditionally, right? So it's the woman who proposed to the men, for example, in our culture, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, no woman ever proposed to me. I had to propose to my wife, right? So I was hoping she would propose to me, but she comes from a different ethnic group, right? But we are very rich in cultures, very rich in culinary landscape, and I think the millions of Chinese tourists who go to Indonesia, they experience this. I think this is why they like Indonesia, because there are just so many options. Indonesians are also one of the happiest people in the world. You know, we may have a lot of poverty still, you know, and a lot of problems. But it's the Indonesian mindset. They're always smiling, you know, they're always happy. A Gallup poll found that Indonesia is the 8th happiest people in the world, just right behind Fiji, Sweden, the Philippines, and some other countries. And there is also the importance of family in Indonesian society. So family connections and family as an economic and social safeguard is very important. It's not individualistic as in the West. Yeah, you can I lived with my mother, even though I had a job. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I lived at her house still. Not because, I was feel childish or anything, but because, that's how Indonesian families are. They're always closely connected. And when you don't have a job, when you're unemployed, you go back to the family and they take care of you, right? So the family as the social safety net is very important. And Indonesians are also very welcoming, warm, and open-minded. They love foreigners. They love having guests, and they respect the people who come into our country and into their homes. It's part of our cultural makeup, right? And I think many Chinese who go to Bali, I'm sure they feel this openness and welcoming attitude on the part of Indonesians. And it's important also to highlight that the largest ethnic group in Indonesia are Javanese. People who come from Java, the island of Java. But the national language is not Javanese. The national language is Malay, Melayu, Bahasa Indonesia. And that reflects the fact that in Indonesia, all the ethnicity are equal. So that is how we can maintain our national unity and how tolerance and respect can grow in our nationhood. Right? So that's just by way of introduction of what kind of society Indonesia is. We have a lot of cultures, a lot of history. We are very open. We are very happy. And it's a dynamic people living in the largest archipelago in the world.
Thank you, Tino, for the fascinating introduction. And I obviously learned quite a lot. This is a very brief but very, very good introduction indeed. Now, these days, when we have a conversation, the topic of COVID-19 is not avoidable. Due to the ongoing pandemic, the global economy is under tremendous stress. While preventing and controlling epidemic, I understand the Indonesia government, and the people are also, putting a lot of efforts in it. And actually, it's gradually recovering from its economic activities. For example, the government is adopting measures such as interest rate cuts to boost its economy. Many companies in Indonesia are also actively responding to the social changes, brought by this pandemic. Food delivery business is on the rise. Small medium enterprises are trying to sell products via online business, e-commerce platform. The pandemic has, to some extent, I think, accelerated the development of Indonesia's digital economy. So how do you look at the current challenges in Indonesia? Do you see any economic opportunities amid the pandemic, other than all the kind of bad news?
Dino, you want to start? Or
Yes.
let me add.
Yes.
Please.
So most of the sectors are down. Manufacturing is down, retail is down, tourism is down, hotel, transport. I think most of the sectors are down. But the ones that are rising, as you rightly point out, are the food industry is rising because people are staying home and they like to eat more food. In fact, in my home, my kids just opened a vendor, a food vendor, and we're getting a lot of sales from our neighbors and from around the neighborhood. So people are staying home and eating more and ordering more, and that makes online business, e-commerce rise quite dramatically. So anything to do with e-commerce and online delivery and logistics is doing quite well at the moment, and I think this is something that will be sustained in the coming years. we hope to see some rise in economic activity in the coming weeks or month, because much of the partial lockdown has been eased now, although we are still very much on the guard for the second wave of COVID-19. But our hope is, I mean, Q2 is not very good at all. Q2, the figure is probably close to zero, according to the Minister of Finance. But we hope that Q3 and Q4, we will see the economy pace picking up. And if that happens, we will be in positive growth. But if it doesn't happen, and there's still that possibility, if Q3 and Q4 is bad, then we might as well have 0% growth this year, or even less. So those are some of the circumstances. The government is having negotiations now with digital companies such as Netflix, and Google and so on, regarding the tax issues. And it's not going to be settled bilaterally between Indonesia and the US, for example, on Netflix, or Amazon, but it will be settled through some kind of OECD mechanism, where these things will be negotiated, because it's a new thing. How do you tax a digital company that is making money in Indonesia but based elsewhere, right? But on other things, the government is really giving strong incentives, tax incentives for large and especially medium and small companies, so that they can grow. Because we got to make sure that they don't fire or let go of their workers. There's already about 3 million people now being unemployed, and we want to keep it at a minimum. So the government is giving a lot of ease in terms of taxes, electricity, for example. Electricity for poor homes and small companies are being free, so they don't have to pay for it, right? And if you owe money, if you have a credit line with the banks, that can be restructured as well. So there's millions of transactions that have been restructured in terms of credit card or debt payment, and so on. I myself, I bought 2 cars before COVID-19, right? And I managed to defer payment for 1 year because of COVID-19 to pay for those cars. So there's a lot of those initiatives by the government to support business and to make sure that they go on, because if they don't go on, then there will be more unemployed people.
Good to hear that. I think the government and the people are all working hard, and a similar situation as in China. The government puts out a lot of policies, and fortunately, China is recovering very quickly. From the data I saw, everything seems to be turning to the positive side. And certainly we send our best wishes to the people in Indonesia. Hope, they can overcome this, and certainly, business can work together to help the recovery process. Now, I want to go back a little bit about the history of friendship between China and Indonesia. Both China and Indonesia are Asian civilization with splendid, histories. Our friendship actually can be traced back to the Han Dynasty over 2,000 years ago, when Chinese merchants exchanged silk goods for Indonesian spices, gold, silver, and rice. Then in the Ming Dynasty, at the beginning of the 15th century, Zheng He made 7 ocean voyages, leaving countless historical marks on the islands of Java and Sumatra. after the founding of New China, of course, Indonesia was one of the first countries to establish diplomatic relationship, with China. These were, good, certainly good memories for all the people, and then sometimes, not so good times as well. But on the whole, we have great historical relationship, and certainly the relationship has been extremely tied up, since the diplomatic ties was built in 1990. And then the establishment of the strategic partnership in the 2005. Bilateral relationships have entered into a new period of development. So, Mr. Ambassador, what is your perspective, on the bilateral relationship or friendship you see?
Thank you very much, Chairman Jange. Just call me Pa Joe. It's easier because you call Dino Pa Dino. You can call me Joe as well. So it's a great thing to have three of us having conversation here. But let me add some more information about Indonesia, because I'm coming from the eastern part of Indonesia. If you come from the western part of Indonesia and go to the eastern parts of Indonesia, I'm from the Pacific part of Indonesia, it's going to take like 3.5 hours to 5.5 hours flying time from Jakarta to my part of Indonesia. We are very close to Australia, to the Pacific, and so of course with a sort of different culture, but we are all Indonesians. So that's the great things of Indonesia as well. And then I think our GDP already above 1 trillion US dollar. So we are in the group of trillion GDP nations in the world. I think Dino's been working hard for this idea during his time as a spokesperson of the president. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we are number 15 or 16 within the context of the GDP. And our ease of doing business rank has improved as well significantly over past 5 years. So as to our bilateral relationships, we've been enjoying a very close relationship now between two nations, between two peoples, and between two leaders as well. We established our diplomatic relation back on 13th of April 1950. So in fact, this year we're supposed to celebrate, we are celebrating 70th anniversary of the bilateral relationship between Indonesia and People's Republic of China. A lot of things has been planned. We already implemented some of them virtually as we are doing it now. And of course, we made some plan as well with the government of China, with the embassy of China in Jakarta. And of course, we are going to have some activities as well with Pa Dino Institute or Pa Dino's activities in the very near future. So that's the relationship between two countries. So we are celebrating 70th anniversary now. History, as already mentioned, history notes that during the Sriwijaya and Majapahit era, the Chinese traders regularly trade with Indonesia, most notably spices. And you already mentioned that during the administration of the President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono back in April 2005, President at the time, President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and President Hu Jintao signed a joint declaration on strategic partnership, which became a starting point of rapid development of relations between the two countries. And then during the visit of President Xi Jinping to Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken, October 9, 2013, the two leaders agreed to elevate the bilateral relations to the level of strategic comprehensive partnerships. So in Bahasa Indonesia, we call it, if we used to the relationship as a friends, now we elevate to become buddy, sahabat, a close friends, something like that. So to this end, the two countries agreed to strengthen China and Indonesia cooperation in the following areas, among others, because we are looking at the comprehensive strategic partnerships, we have to look at the three pillars of relationship: political and security, economy, and of course, socio culture. So those are, if you need some number, I can give you some numbers as well on those, in particular in the economic cooperation between two countries. But I should consider that for the last few years, 5 years, 10 years, we've been able to accelerate the relationship between two countries, Indonesia and China.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. I think, as you mentioned, with the bilateral trade agreement, and the China and Indonesia are becoming important trading partner, and the bilateral investment and the trade have been rising rapidly in recent years.
Right.
Thanks
Right.
to the China-ASEAN free trade agreement, and also the two countries now enjoy more economic and trade opportunities, which is reflected by greater bilateral trade scale and more varieties of bilateral exports and imports. TOJOY has over 700,000 entrepreneurs on our platform. Seeing the positive trend, many are becoming increasingly interested. They would love to learn about the latest progress on our trade and economic cooperation, and some preferential policies, for overseas investors from the Malaysian government. So Joy, could you please give us some highlights about these policies, in terms of attracting and welcoming the Chinese investors coming to the country?
Let me give you some numbers, and then I think Padino has some ideas as well, because he's in Jakarta. I'm in Jakarta, but for a family visit. I think Indonesia and China relations since 2013 have flourished and achieved the highest level of cooperation. Of course, during the period of 2014 till last year. And President Jokowi and President Xi Jinping, in fact, have met during that period 8 times to add more telephone call conversation as well. And then within the context of the bilateral relation, Indonesia and China have several bilateral mechanisms, among others, high-level dialogue on economy, high-level people-to-people exchange mechanism, and of course, a lot of joint bilateral cooperation, trade, maritime, etc. So let me give you the number of the 2019 cooperation, economic development cooperation between two countries. We've been able to achieve trade relation or trade volume by 78 point something billion US dollar. That was 2019, increased by 12% compared to 2018. Unfortunately, China still enjoying the surplus of the trade relation between two countries. But we were able to close the gap of the surplus deficit in Indonesia from 2018 to 2019. That's for the investment. That's for trade volume between two countries. For the investment, this is the good things, because we were able, China and Indonesia, of course, you were able to increase your investment. This is the realization of the investment for 2019 by 95.7%. Of course, this is the reflection as well of the conducive environment of doing business and invest in Indonesia. So China now plus Hong Kong become #1 in 2019. Increased by 95.6%. #1, China and Hong Kong. #2, Singapore. #3, Japan. But if we take Hong Kong outside, the #1 is Singapore, #2 is China. So in fact, we already made some plans to become #1 in 2020. And then we still, even though we have some problem with COVID-19, but we still cross our finger and doing our best and do our best to achieve that goal. That in the number of investment between two countries. the three things, the three economic things that we've been able to have a better cooperation with China, I call it tourism economy, because trade, investment, and tourism economy are the prime mover of the economic development. Our economic development now is 5.2. If we can accelerate those prime mover of the Indonesian economy and achieve 6 point something percent, then we do hope that as a vision by our founding fathers of the nations, that beyond 2030 or beyond 2040, we have to become one of the largest economy as well in the world. So we are working on that. So tourism, last year, tourists coming from China already 2.1 million persons, with the capacity to spend each person in every visit more than 1,500 US dollar. So that's a good thing for us. And number 4, because I think this is the cooperation that we need to accelerate as well. You already mentioned it, digital economy. Because digital economy contributed around 30% to Chinese GDP. In our case, in Indonesia, it's only 3%. But looking back for the last 5 years, the pace of the development of the digital economy in Indonesia is quite fast. And according to the many prediction, by 2024 or 2025, the value of the valuation of the digital economy in Southeast Asia will be 250 billion US dollar.
Wow.
And out of 250 billion US dollar, Indonesia's share will be 130 to 150 billion US dollar. Now we have 4 or 5 unicorn. Some of them no longer unicorn. We call them decacorn. So if the pace of the development of digital economy and in cooperation with China, this is one of the cooperation that we need to pursue, because if by 2025, the share of Indonesia will be 130 to 140, then the contribution of the digital economy towards the Indonesian GDP will be 10 to 11%. So those are, according to us at the embassy, the 4 main economic activities that we need to pursue to have a better cooperation with China to be able to increase or to accelerate our economic growth beyond above 6%. Unfortunately, COVID is coming, but it's always light at the end of the tunnel. Yes. So I think you already mentioned that one of the things that enjoy it's not the word enjoy is not the right word, but benefited from the COVID is the e-commerce platform, marketplace platform. This is the things that we need to have a better cooperation. Of course, I have some ideas what will be the cooperation or economic sector that benefited from the COVID situation, in particular in Indonesia, vis-a-vis cooperation with China. I will elaborate further maybe in the next conversation. But those are points that I would like to make. Thank you, Chairman Jangge.
Thank you. That's a very, very good perspective. Now, as a member of the G20 and certainly the largest economy in Southeast Asia, Indonesia has managed to maintain a high 5% economic growth for years. This is very, very impressive. It is also one of the most attractive destinations, for investment among ASEAN countries. I know that Indonesia has access to very rich natural resources, including oil, gas, minerals, and your plant and the fishing resources are also desirable, to many Chinese investors. Now, in addition to resources, the large young population is a strong advantage of your economy. I'm sure, you know, I only touched a tiny bit of your economic strength. And maybe Mr. Yalao, you might shed some more lights here in terms of the strengths of the economy that the Chinese entrepreneurs, business people can come and work with.
Yeah, well, thank you. There are many aspects that provide opportunities for Chinese entrepreneurs. I mean, first, you're definitely right. This is an economy that has steadily kept a 5% growth in the last decade or so, you know, 5 to 6% growth. And that's relatively higher compared to a Western nation for sure, and then to most developing countries. Yeah. So and we predict next year the growth will be positive somewhere in a range between, I don't know, 3 to 5%, if things go back somewhat near to normalcy. But there are a lot of business plans that the government is doing. But first, you have to underscore that the President Jokowi's government is very, very pro-business, right? You know, President Joko Widodo himself is a businessman. And he became president and adopted very pro-business regulations. And he understands what business wants. He understands trade and so on. But the opportunities, the young people in Indonesia it's a bulk of our population. I think about 50% of Indonesians are under between 29 years old. Yeah, and about 60 million people, 65 million people are between the age of 10 to 24, right? And they have spending power. You know, either their parents have money or they have money. Yeah, so they are part of also a very strong consumer class. It is predicted that there's 141 million consumer class in Indonesia with extra money to buy things. Urbanization in Indonesia is very strong, like in China. There's about 140 million 147 million Indonesians living in cities now. And as you know, living in cities, the needs are a lot more than if you live in the rural areas. And there's also a big project, a huge project for Indonesia to move the capital to East Kalimantan. That has been somewhat distracted by COVID-19, but the president has signaled that he wants to still get it done, moving the whole capital from Jakarta to an area in East Kalimantan. Yeah. So that's going to be a huge project. And on top of that, there are two main sectors that will drive the economy under President Jokowi. One is definitely infrastructure. You know, there's a lot of infrastructure projects, and I believe that some Chinese companies are also supporting and taking part of that, these infrastructure projects in Indonesia. And secondly is the human capital projects, you know, building universities, trainings, and all the things that will elevate the human capital development in Indonesia. So those two areas, physical infrastructure and human capital development, are where the emphasis will be in terms of national development. And one other thing that is important to understand, before the debate was always about poverty in Indonesia, like China. China had a lot of poverty, and if you look at China in the 60s, 70s, the discussion was about how to beat poverty. Yeah? But in like in China, in Indonesia, the debate is shifting now. It's no longer about poverty. Now it's about quality of life, right? So this reflects the fact that the middle class is much growing in Indonesia. The consuming class is growing. So because there's now a shifting debate from poverty to quality of life, this provides opportunities for the business people, both in Indonesia and outside. because these people, they want to buy shampoo, right? They want to have a nice headphone. They want to have nice clothes and so on and so on. Yeah? So this is a huge opportunity for Chinese. And by the way, Indonesian young people in the survey say that they're open to global brands, right? So from China, we see a lot of Xiaomi, some Huawei, not as much as Samsung, but some Huawei phones, and also the DG planes, yeah, the drones, yeah. I see quite a lot in Indonesia. I think the challenge for Chinese entrepreneurs is being able to show Indonesians that Chinese brands are good, but the quality is also good, right? I know some Indonesians still have the old mindset that Chinese brands, but they don't know about, and the quality is not so good. But as we know, I've been to China every year. Chinese design is really, really good now, and Chinese quality has much improved compared to like 20, 30 years ago. So this kind of information needs to be imparted to Indonesian consumers.
Yeah.
在今天的节目当中，戈总和印度尼西亚驻华大使周浩黎先生、印度尼西亚前外交部副部长迪诺·帕迪·贾拉尔先生就中印双边关系及经贸合作发展历程和展望做出了深入探讨。在下期节目当中，戈总和印尼驻华大使、印尼前外交部副部长继续围绕两国企业合作话题探讨共赢之道。在这里也感谢大家的观看，由天九重磅打造的云洽会直播系列节目《歌剧夜话：全球视野之海外商机》，明天同一时间我们不见不散。